I've been thinking about, before we get married, getting, do you know what a prenup is?
You broke my heart right now.
You're focusing on the wrong thing.
No, you're focused on breakup, I focus on marriage.
Okay, whatever. Enjoy your shop.
Yeah.
I think you'd end up, leaving me if I got you an $800 bidet. You wouldn't need me anymore.
Not baby.
Yeah.
You are my everything, baby. Shut the mother.
Before we even get into this episode, sit with one contradiction. Rasit says he does not want Mallory's money. But the second the budget gets tight, he has an answer for where the money should come from. Her accident settlement. That does not automatically make him a gold digger. It does not prove he came to America for a payout. But it exposes the real problem in this relationship, and it is much bigger than a prenup. Mallory did not damage this relationship by mentioning one legal document. She exposed a financial fight that had already been building. She is working 2 jobs, covering the household, buying equipment for his workshop, and trying to protect the one pool of money that makes her feel secure. Then Rasit adds another monthly obligation, money for his parents. When she says the regular budget may not cover it, he points toward her savings. This is no longer a simple culture clash. It is about power, guilt, family duty, and what each person believes marriage gives them access to. Rasit hears prenup and thinks, "You're already planning to leave me." Mallory hears, "Use your settlement," and thinks, "You already see my safety net as ours." Both reactions come from fear. Both make emotional sense. But they cannot both control the marriage. So the real question is not whether Mallory was wrong to ask for a prenup. It is why they waited until the K. One clock was ticking to discover that they define love, loyalty, and financial security in completely different ways. By the end, that settlement may look like the third person in their relationship. Let's set up the episode without turning this into a 20-minute recap of household purchases. Mallory creates a list of the monthly expenses. She wants Rasit to understand what she is carrying financially. She is paying the bills, helping him set up a workshop, and working 2 jobs while he cannot contribute in the same way. Rasit looks at the list and adds another expense, $150 a month for his parents. That request is not random. He has explained that his parents need help, and he supported them before leaving Turkey. This is not necessarily him inventing a luxury expense because he thinks he found a rich American. But it is another obligation landing on Mallory's shoulders. Then he suggests using her settlement money. Mallory brings up a prenup. Rasit hears it as a prediction of divorce. To him, she is not protecting property. She is preparing for the relationship to fail. They stop listening completely right there. Mallory entered the conversation looking for acknowledgement. She wanted him to say, "I see how much pressure you are under." Rasit entered looking for loyalty. He wanted her to say, "Your parents matter to me because they matter to you." Neither asked the question that could have saved the conversation. What can we realistically afford, and what are we both comfortable committing to? They are discussing dollars, but emotionally, they are arguing about worth. Mallory is saying, "Do you see what I am sacrificing?" Rasit is saying, "Do you see me as family?" Now, Mallory's budget list is reasonable on paper. Couples should discuss expenses before marriage. But the presentation matters. When you include costs you would probably be paying whether your partner was there or not, then place that list in front of someone who is already dependent on you. It can feel less like a budget and more like a bill for being in your life. I do not think Mallory means, "You cost me too much." But that may be what Rasit hears. Intention does not erase impact. At the same time, Rasit cannot keep treating her settlement like an open solution whenever the budget gets uncomfortable. That money means something different to Mallory. It represents safety, control after instability, and proof that she can survive if life falls apart again. So when he says, "Use the savings," she does not hear a practical suggestion. She hears someone reaching toward the one boundary she has already decided is not negotiable. That is the first major red flag. Not that he asked for help. Not that he cares about his parents. The red flag is that Mallory attached a boundary to this money, and he still treats it like a shared emergency fund. That does not prove bad intentions. But ignoring a financial boundary can destroy trust even when the person crossing it believes they are being practical. Mallory and Rasit are both terrified of becoming the less powerful person in the marriage. Mallory has the income, home, savings, and local support system. On paper, she has more power. Emotionally, she feels exposed. She is carrying the finances, facing a wedding deadline, and watching her emergency money become part of the conversation. Her instinct is to create structure. She makes lists, sets limits, and thinks about worst-case scenarios. Planning is how she calms herself down. Rasit responds to fear differently. He wants certainty. He wants to believe marriage means there is no your money and my money, no backup plan, and no future where he is outside her life. So when Mallory says prenup, she thinks she is creating safety. Rasit hears her removing it. The more anxious Mallory becomes, the more direct and controlling she sounds. The more rejected Rasit feels, the more defensive he becomes. Then he shuts down. She gets more frustrated, and the conversation ends without solving anything. They are not responding only to each other. They are responding to old fear. Mallory has talked about seeing divorce up close and experiencing an unhealthy marriage. That helps explain why uncertainty feels dangerous to her. It does not make every choice correct, but it explains the emotional force behind the prenup. Rasit appears to come from a different framework. He treats marriage as total commitment. Discussing separation before the wedding feels insulting because commitment, in his mind, should remove the need for that conversation. Neither worldview is automatically cruel. But love does not erase legal and financial reality. A prenup is not necessarily a prophecy. It can be a plan. And Rasit refusing to discuss one does not make Mallory feel safer. It does the opposite. She is watching a man say, "I do not want your money," while resisting a legal boundary around it. That contradiction is impossible to ignore. It does not prove he is using her, but it gives her reason to question whether his definition of equal means mutual partnership or equal access to assets she built before marriage. A lot of viewers will focus on the $150. That amount is not nothing, especially when Mallory is stretched thin. But the heart of the conflict is consent. Rasit sees supporting his parents as a non-negotiable duty. He did it before moving, and he does not want relocation to mean abandoning them. That is understandable. But while he is financially dependent on Mallory, his personal obligation becomes her obligation, unless they agree otherwise. And that agreement cannot be assumed. Marriage does not mean one person gets to add expenses to the budget and call disagreement disrespect. Just as Mallory cannot bring him to America, understand that he will be temporarily dependent, and then act shocked that supporting him costs money, Rasit cannot arrive with an ongoing family obligation and treat her acceptance as automatic. Both had responsibilities before he moved. Mallory needed to be realistic about the cost of the K-1 process. Rasit needed to be completely transparent about how much he expected to send home and where that money would come from. This should have been discussed before the flight, before the workshop, and definitely before the wedding countdown. That is why Team Neither may have the strongest argument. Mallory should protect premarital assets. Rasit should not be humiliated for temporary dependence. But how did two adults reach this stage without a shared budget, a family support agreement, and a clear line around the settlement? It would be easy to reduce this to American woman wants a prenup, Turkish man feels insulted. That is too simple. Culture may help explain why Rasit sees supporting his parents as part of his identity. It may also explain why discussing divorce before marriage feels emotionally wrong to him. Mallory's position comes from a more individual approach to property and risk. She believes love and financial protection can exist at the same time. Neither value system needs to be mocked. The problem begins when culture becomes a shield. Rasit can use "this is how marriage works for me" to avoid her boundary. Mallory can use "this is responsible" to dismiss what marriage means to him. Culture should create better questions. What happens while he cannot work? Is the settlement off limits? How much goes to his parents once he earns? Who pays for the workshop? Those are the conversations that create a marriage. Saying "my culture" or "my trauma" may explain why someone feels strongly, but neither phrase gives one partner automatic control. His parents' hardship creates urgency and guilt. Her family history creates fear and caution. So the new relationship is being governed by old pain. Unless they stop arguing about who is right and start designing rules they both accept, this conflict will return. The fan reaction is divided, but three arguments keep coming up. The first group is firmly on Mallory's side. They believe protecting the house and settlement is basic common sense. They also believe Rasit's repeated interest in the settlement makes the prenup more necessary, not less. The second group thinks Rasit is being judged too harshly. They see a man who left his job, country, language, and independence behind, only to arrive in a household where every expense can be used as evidence that he is a burden. Financial dependence can make someone defensive and sensitive to anything that sounds like control. The third group has the strongest argument. Mallory is not wrong for wanting protection, and Rasit is not wrong for caring about his parents. Both were reckless for waiting this long to discuss it. Some viewers jump from he suggested using her savings to he is after everything she owns. That is not confirmed. What the episode supports is that he has not respected the boundary around the account. We can criticize that without inventing motives. There are also rumors about wedding pictures, rings, and whether they stayed together. Until something is confirmed, those remain rumors. The relationship gives us enough to discuss without another ring zoom investigation. The settlement now carries more emotional weight than either of them admits. To Mallory, it is protection. To Rasit, it may look like unused family money. To viewers, it has become a test of his intentions. That is a dangerous position for any asset. Every time the account comes up, Mallory becomes more suspicious. Every time she protects it, Rasit feels more excluded. So the account keeps gaining power over the relationship. Razit's pattern is to look for an immediate solution. If money exists, he wants to use it to solve the current problem. He also connects financial unity with emotional unity, so a boundary can sound like rejection. Mallory's pattern is to wait until pressure builds, then introduce a major rule during a tense moment. Her boundaries may be reasonable, but the timing can make them feel like punishment. Both patterns increase the chance of another explosion. The warning signs are already there. Major expectations came late. The prenup appeared during conflict. Sarcasm and swearing enter quickly. There is no clear shared budget, no agreement about family support, and no firm line around untouchable money. Trust, children, and Razit's adjustment to Alabama are also unresolved. The larger pattern is obvious. They keep discovering major incompatibilities after the commitment becomes harder to reverse. And that is why even a signed prenup would not solve this. A prenup may define what happens to certain assets if they separate. It does not decide how they spend next month. It does not decide whether Mallory funds the workshop. It does not decide how much goes to Turkey. It does not decide whether Rasit accepts her uncertainty about children. It does not decide whether Mallory can discuss risk without him feeling unloved. The paperwork is not the real problem. The real problem is governance. How do they make decisions when they disagree? Who gets the final say? What belongs to the marriage, and what stays personal? Can either person say no without being accused of betrayal? Until they answer those questions, the prenup is just the most visible fight in a much larger power struggle. The most likely short-term outcome is not a clean resolution. Rasit may keep refusing the prenup until it is explained by a lawyer, translator, or someone he trusts. Or they may postpone the issue and focus on getting through the wedding deadline. That would be the reality TV version of solving a fire by moving the smoke alarm. Support for his parents will return. Mallory may respond by monitoring spending more closely. To her, that feels responsible. To him, it may feel humiliating. That creates the next conflict, accountability versus control. A breakup becomes more likely if Rasit keeps treating the settlement as available money, or if Mallory keeps using his dependence as proof that he is a burden. The unresolved question about children could also become more serious because it follows the same pattern. They make major commitments first and discuss consequences later. There is still a path to marriage. They may reach a vague compromise, marry before the deadline, and promise to handle the rest later. Humanity remains strangely committed to treating "we'll deal with it later" as a life plan. Marriage would not end the conflict. It would move it into a legally connected household. The real test begins when Rasit can work. Will he contribute to the household before sending money home? Will Mallory loosen control once he earns? Will he respect the settlement boundary once he has income? Will she stop presenting support as a debt he owes her? That will reveal whether the relationship can become balanced or whether the resentment simply changes form. The prenup did not create mistrust between Mallory and Rasit. It revealed mistrust that was already growing around money, dependence, family duty, and control. Mallory is not wrong for protecting assets she had before marriage. But her delivery can make Rasit feel like a financial problem instead of a partner. Rasit is not wrong for feeling responsible for his parents. But he cannot turn that responsibility into Mallory's obligation without her agreement. And he cannot keep pointing toward her settlement while acting shocked that she wants legal protection. Both want security. They just want completely different versions of it. Mallory wants the security of knowing she can survive if the marriage fails. Rasit wants the security of believing failure is not even being considered. One is practical. The other is emotional. A healthy marriage needs room for both. But refusing the conversation is not resolving it. Love cannot replace a shared budget. Commitment cannot erase boundaries. And a wedding deadline cannot force two people into the same financial worldview. So here's the real question. Was Mallory's prenup a reasonable boundary that became necessary once Rasit started talking about her settlement? Or did she bring it up in the worst possible moment and make him feel accused before he understood what she was protecting? And beyond that, which person is actually asking for more power here? Team Mallory, Team Rasit, or Team neither? Because right now, the biggest threat to this relationship is not the prenup. It is that both of them believe love should automatically make the other person accept their rules.